When Elvis invited 19-year-old Jenny Martinez on stage during his Las Vegas show, everyone expected the usual fans screaming. Instead, what she whispered in his ear stopped the entire concert. It was August 12th, 1976, at the International Hotel in Las Vegas. Elvis was in the middle of his second show of the night, and the energy was electric. 15,000 fans were packed into that arena, screaming, crying, and singing along to every word. But tonight was going to be different. Tonight, one fan would say something to Elvis that would change him forever. Elvis was halfway through his set, having just finished Hound Dog to thunderous applause. He was in a great mood, joking with the audience, flirting with the ladies in the front row, doing his signature hip moves that still drove people crazy after all these years. "Y'all having a good time tonight?" Elvis asked the crowd, wiping sweat from his forehead with one of his famous scarves. The audience roared their approval. "Good, good. You know, I'm feeling pretty good myself tonight. Real good." But then something caught Elvis's eye. In the third row center section sat a young Hispanic woman who wasn't screaming or reaching for him like everyone else. She was just sitting there, tears streaming down her face, staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. It wasn't the usual, "I love you, Elvis" cry. This was different. This looked like gratitude, pain. He couldn't tell. Elvis had always had a sixth sense about his audience. He could spot the heartbroken, the lonely, the ones who needed something more than just entertainment, and something about this young woman called to, "Hold on a second, folks," Elvis said into the microphone, his eyes still locked on the crying girl. "I see someone out there who looks like she might need a friend tonight." The audience started looking around, trying to figure out who Elvis was talking about. Elvis walked to the edge of the stage and pointed directly at Jenny Martinez. "You, darling," the pretty lady in the blue dress. "What's your name?" Jenny's mouth fell open. She looked around as if Elvis might be talking to someone else, but the spotlight was now on her, and 15,000 people were staring. "Don't be shy, honey. What's your name?" "Jenny," she called out, her voice barely audible over the crowd. "Jenny. That's a beautiful name. Jenny, you look like you've been crying. Are you okay, sweetheart?" Jenny nodded, but the tears kept flowing. "You know what? I think you need to come up here with me. Would you like that?" The crowd went. This was the kind of spontaneous Elvis moment that people would talk about for years. Security helped Jenny make her way to the stage, and Elvis reached down to pull her up. She was shaking like a leaf, overwhelmed by the situation she'd found herself in. Jenny Martinez was 19 years old, a college student from San Antonio who had saved up for months to see Elvis perform. She was small, maybe 5'2", with long dark hair and kind eyes that were still wet with tears. "Don't be nervous, honey," Elvis said gently, putting his arm around her shoulders. "These folks are friendly. Tell them where you're from." "San Antonio," Jenny said into the microphone, her voice trembling. "San Antonio. I love Texas. Beautiful state. Beautiful people. Now, Jenny, I saw you crying down there. Want to tell me what's wrong?" This was the moment when everyone expected Jenny to say something typical, that she loved Elvis, that she dreamed of meeting him, that this was the best night of her life. Instead, Jenny looked up at Elvis, and in a voice so quiet that he had to lean down to hear her, she whispered something that stopped him cold. What Jenny whispered to Elvis was captured by the stage microphones, but it was so quiet that most of the audience couldn't hear it clearly. Only later, when bootleg recordings surfaced, would people understand what she said. "My little brother Miguel died last month. He was 8 years old. He had cancer. The last song we played for him before he died was 'Love Me Tender.' You helped him not be scared." Elvis froze. The smile disappeared from his face, and for a moment, he looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. "What did you say, darling?" he asked, his voice already changing. Jenny, now realizing that the microphone had picked up her words, started crying harder. "My little brother, he loved you so much. When he was dying, we played your music for him. It made him peaceful." The audience, who had been cheering and whistling, began to quiet down as they sensed something serious was happening on stage. Elvis was quiet for a long moment, still holding Jenny. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Your little brother." What was his name? Miguel Martinez. He was the sweetest little boy. He wanted to be a singer like you. What happened next shocked everyone in that arena. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, began to cry. Not just a few tears, he broke down completely. His shoulders shook, and he had to grip the microphone stand to keep from falling. The audience went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop in that massive arena. Charlie Hodgett, Elvis's longtime friend and guitar player, later said, "In all my years with Elvis, I'd never seen him break down like that on stage. Never. He always kept his emotions in check during performances. But something about that girl's story just destroyed him." Elvis tried to speak several times but couldn't get the words out. Finally, he managed to say, "Miguel, that's a beautiful name." "I bet he was a beautiful little boy." "He was," Jenny whispered. "He used to sing 'Love Me Tender' to our baby sister when she couldn't sleep. Even when he was so sick he could barely talk, he would still sing that song." Elvis wiped his eyes and looked out at the silent audience. 15,000 people were watching the most vulnerable moment of his career. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elvis said, his voice still shaking, "I want you to meet Jenny Martinez from San Antonio. She just told me about her little brother Miguel who passed away last month. He was 8 years old and he loved music." The audience was so quiet. You could hear people briefing. Miguel's favorite song was "Love Me Tender," and Jenny tells me that it brought him comfort in his final days. I can't think of a greater honor than knowing that something I recorded helped a little boy not be afraid. Elvis turned to Jenny. "Honey, I want to sing that song right now, and I want you to stay up here with me. Can you do that?" Jenny nodded, too emotional to speak. "This song is for Miguel Martinez, and for every child who's ever found comfort in music when they needed it most." What followed was the most emotional performance of "Love Me Tender" that Elvis ever gave. He sat down at the piano with Jenny standing beside him and sang with a tenderness and vulnerability that left the entire audience in tears. But here's the incredible part. Jenny began singing along quietly at first. Then with more confidence, her voice was sweet and pure, and it blended beautifully with Elvis's more powerful vocals. "Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go." As they sang together, Elvis looked up at Jenny and saw something that would stay with him forever. For just a moment, she wasn't crying anymore. She was smiling, and Elvis knew that somehow, in that moment, she was singing not just with him, but with the memory of her little brother. When the song ended, the arena erupted in the longest standing ovation Elvis had ever received. But it wasn't just for him. It was for Jenny, for Miguel, and for the moment of pure human connection they'd all just witnessed. Elvis hugged Jenny tightly before she left the stage. "Thank you," he whispered to her. "Thank you for sharing Miguel with me. I'll never forget him." As Jenny made her way back to her seat, Elvis stood alone on stage for a moment, collecting himself. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, more reflective. "Folks, we all get caught up in the lights and the glamour and the excitement of a show like this. But sometimes something happens that reminds you what music is really about. It's about connecting with people. It's about being there when someone needs comfort or hope, or just a reason to smile." He paused, looking out at the audience. "I've been performing for over 20 years and I've been blessed beyond belief. But I want you to know that nothing, and I mean nothing, means more to me than knowing that something I've done has helped someone in their darkest moment." The story of Jenny Martinez and her brother Miguel spread quickly through Elvis's fan community. In the days following the concert, hundreds of people reached out to share their own stories of how Elvis's music had helped them through difficult times. Elvis was deeply moved by these stories. Joe Esposito, his road manager, later revealed that Elvis started incorporating a moment of silence for all the children who are no longer with us into every concert. After that night, Elvis was never the same. After meeting Jenny Joe, he started thinking more about the responsibility that came with his gift. He realized that for many people, his music wasn't just entertainment. It was a lifeline. After the concert, Jenny was interviewed by several reporters who had heard about what happened. She revealed that she had almost not come to the show at all. "I bought the ticket months before Miguel got sick," she explained. "After he died, I didn't want to go. Music reminded me too much of him. But my mom said Miguel would want me to go, that he'd want me to hear the songs he loved one more time. When Elvis called me up on stage, I was terrified. But then I realized that this was Miguel's gift to me. He was giving me a chance to share his story with someone who would understand." Jenny also revealed that she had brought something with her to the concert, a small toy car that had belonged to Miguel. He carried it everywhere. She said, "Even in the hospital, I had it in my purse that night. And when Elvis hugged me, I felt like Miguel was there too." Unbeknownst to most people, that entire interaction between Elvis and Jenny was recorded by the venue's sound system. For years, it remained in the archives until a sound engineer discovered it. And when the recording was finally released, it became one of the most requested pieces of Elvis material ever. People weren't just interested in the music. They wanted to hear that moment of pure human connection. Music critics called it Elvis, at his most authentic, and a reminder of the man behind the legend. In 1999, Jenny Martinez established the Miguel Martinez Foundation, which provides music therapy for children in hospitals. "Miguel taught me that music has healing power," she said at the foundation's launch. "Elvis showed me how to use that power to help others." Elvis, who died less than a year after meeting Jenny, never got to see the foundation, but friends say he would have been proud. Elvis always believed that his talents were given to him for a reason. Priscilla Presley said, "Meeting Jenny and hearing about Miguel reminded him of what that reason was." The story of Elvis. Jenny and Miguel reminds us that sometimes the most powerful moments happen when we least expect them. Elvis went on stage that night planning to entertain his audience. Instead, he ended up being changed by them. It also shows us the incredible power of vulnerability. When Elvis allowed himself to break down on stage, when he showed his audience that he was human, that he hurt, that he cared, that's when he became more than just an entertainer. That's when he became a healer. Jenny Martinez later said, "People always talk about what Elvis gave to his fans. But that night, I saw what his fans gave to him. We gave him purpose. We gave him a reason to keep going." Today, over 45 years later, the story of that night in Las Vegas is still told in music therapy programs around the world. It's used as an example of how music can bridge any gap between performer and audience, between grief and hope, between despair and healing. The International Hotel, now called the Westgate, has a small plaque backstage that reads, "In memory of Miguel Martinez and all the children whose lives have been touched by music." And every August 12th, fans gather at Elvis's grave at Graceland to remember not just the king, but also a little boy named Miguel, who loved to sing, and his sister Jenny, who helped Elvis remember why music mattered. Elvis Presley performed thousands of concerts in his career. He sang for presidents and purpose for massive crowds.